It's that time of year again. What's going on, everyone? It's If You Have to Pick Three. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
This is our obviously Pick Three episode. I get a list. Zach gets a list. We have a topic. And then we fight out for a final three list to see who gets more on that list. It is, like I said, that time of the year again. Super Bowl time. And with that, there's always some fanfare around the Super Bowl and the commercials and the halftime show. And, well, that got us thinking, and I can't believe, and Zach has said this too, I can't believe that we haven't done this before, but if you have to pick three of the best Super Bowl halftime performances that are not Prince.
What a twist. Hands down, we can go on and on about how incredible Prince's Super Bowl halftime show was. It's still one of the most iconic TV performances and just a pure example of how incredible a performer Prince was. And also a great example of how important the halftime show can be and how it can really change the trajectory of an artist. Prince was a legend going into the halftime show because you got to remember around that time, the Super Bowl was kind of playing it safe. Prince, how safe can you really be when it comes to Prince? But after the infamous Nipplegate incident in 2004, they were really going with more no shockers, just legendary acts performing mini concerts. And Prince was making a comeback after many years of going by a symbol and kind of losing credibility. First, the Grammy performance kind of like let everyone know like, oh, Prince is back. And this one just really solidified how flat out incredible he was and how he really was a god.
So just go into his performance a little bit more. If you don't remember what he performed, and I vaguely remember what he performed, of course, everybody knows. And if you haven't seen it because, well, you weren't born at that time or you just don't like football and you didn't see it, go on YouTube and watch this performance. This is where he performs Purple Rain on his love symbol guitar in the rain at the Super Bowl. It's incredible. But in addition to that, he also covered Creedence's Proud Mary, Dylan's All Along the Watchtower, the Foo Fighters' Best of You. They did, like, at the very beginning, they did We Will Rock You from Queen. And then, of course, they did Let's Go Crazy, Baby I'm a Star. So there was a lot that he did. And it wasn't just Prince playing Prince. It was Prince performing and Prince giving the performance of a lifetime. You can't say enough about this performance.
Fun fact, when he did the snippet of Best of You, which awesome cover, and he really made it his own, it actually pissed off Taylor Hawkins and Foo Fighters. They were thrilled and honored, but they were jokingly kind of pissed off because not only did they not know that Prince was going to do it, but they were like, what the hell? He wouldn't let us release our cover of Darling Nikki as a single, but he can do a cover of our song? What? Because the history goes like when they were doing One by One, they recorded a cover of Darling Nikki and it was actually getting airplay in Australia or some random country. And they were like, oh, this is gaining some steam. Maybe we should release this as a single too. But Prince is extremely controlling over how his music is used. So he actually refused to let them release it as a radio single at the time. So Taylor Hawkins was like kind of joking, like, what the hell, man? You can cover us on national TV in front of millions and millions of people, but we can't. Come on. But they were also honored because it's Prince. So Matt and I are going to name what we think are the three best Super Bowl halftime performances of all time. And then we'll duke it out in our own little Super Bowl over which is the actual three. But first,
I'd like to give a big shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co. You know, they've been a sponsor with us for a while now, and they produce some really high quality beard balms and oils right here in New Jersey. Ed, great guy, you know, talks to us all the time about the podcast and different things. And he came to us one day about a very special idea. How would we like to have our own beard oil? And I said, Ed, you know what? That sounds great. But what the heck are we going to make this thing smell like? So Zach and I, we put our heads together and, well, the one man who we agreed embodies rock and roll above all others, Lemmy from Motorhead. And we were thinking, all right, well, if it's going to be based on Lemmy, what the hell are we going to do? Because I'm sure you don't want to smell like Lemmy. But maybe the things that Lemmy embodies. Well, you can't really put badass rock and roll inside of a scent. So what do? We did bourbon, cola, tobacco, and leather. If that doesn't say Lemmy, I don't know what does. And what came out of it was amazing. And I'm really picky about what we push here on the podcast. So this is something special. It smells amazing. And if you've ever wanted to try Beard Balm or oil, I honestly think right now is the time. You're going to look good. You're going to feel good. Most importantly, you're going to feel good. And you're going to smell epic. So what you got to do is go to lucky13, the number beardco.com. And then you go there, you put the Lemmy in your shopping cart, and we're even giving you a code to get you 10% off. EFP10 at checkout. Lucky13, the number beardco.com. EFP10 at checkout. 10% off of your order. You can't beat that. You're going to look good, feel good, and you're going to smell epic. Can't beat that. All right, now with that out of the way, I'm going first.
You're going first?
I'm not even giving you the chance.
What should we do? A flip? I feel like we should do a flip of the coin, like as if it's like a real Super Bowl. Fine. Go. See if I care.
Well, good, because I don't. So for me to pick the top three here, I had to kind of look back and obviously look back over all of the performances. And one of the first ones that I could actually vividly remember watching and enjoying, I had to go all the way back to Super Bowl 27 in 1993. This is when the Cowboys destroyed the Bills. It was 52-17. And the performance was Michael Jackson. Now, this was a vastly, vastly different format for the Super Bowl because, well, this was back in a time when they were losing ratings for the halftime shows and for the Super Bowl in general. So they brought Michael in to boost ratings. And yeah, it worked a lot because he laid the groundwork and his performance was so legendary that it was laid out all of the Super Bowl halftime performances to this day, because you got to realize what they were doing before this. And this is what makes this so special, because it really was a changing of the guard for what the NFL was doing at the time, because it was really a snooze fest the year before. It was called Winter Magic, and the performance featured classic Christmas songs like Walking in a Winter Wonderland, followed by a rendition of Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. And then there was an original composition of Frosty, which involved rapping based on characters described in Frosty the Snowman.
It's great. So that performance.
Right. So hold on. That was that's just the music. Okay. And obviously there's going to be a little bit more later on, but this is what they were pushing at the time as their Super Bowl shows. Could you see this happening today?
You know, it's funny though. That's still better than the year that they had the Elvis Magician as the halftime performance. Do you remember that one?
No, and I don't want to. So it gets better than that. So they had parachute style snowflakes. They had some drill teams, professional dancers, which included ballroom dancing couples, a 60-piece Minnesota Youth Symphony color guard, and like I said before, they had drill teams and they were from like the area high schoolers, and they had rollerbladers. If that doesn't say 90s, I don't know what does. But they had the Pride of the Minnesota Marching Band perform. They had former Olympic champion Brian Boitano and Dorothy Hamill skating on like 10-foot round ponds. And finally, to wrap it all up, they decided, oh, okay, well, we have all this other stuff and we need a name. So they threw Gloria Estefan at the very end to do like 2 songs, which is like the weirdest pairing in the world, to go from rapping Frosty the Snowman and Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies to Gloria Estefan.
That sounds like a great Christmas to me. Granted, I am Jewish, so maybe.
But that was Super Bowl 26 in 92. So in 93, what did they do? They took the exact opposite of that, raised the ratings, laid out the groundwork for the rest of Super Bowl halftime performance history, and brought in Michael Jackson. And watching his performance, and you can clearly see that this is like something that was out of the realm of what the production companies and the NFL was used to at the time, because it was just very empty feeling. Like, granted, when Michael Jackson came out of the top of the screens in the stadium, on each side of the stadium, so it looked like he was like bouncing between like all the different sides. It was really cool. But then, just the production value and, seeing like the booms of the lights just come into the shots, and it was weird. But still, it was Michael Jackson put on a hell of a show. And also, like I've been saying, just laid out the groundwork for everything to come. So that's number one.
So can I do a little fun fact about that particular Super Bowl? So granted, a lot has changed over the years, and unfortunately more is uncovered about, or allegations about Michael Jackson have come to light over the years. If you think talking about a halftime performance of Michael Jackson is awkward, guess who had the honor of doing the coin toss at that particular Super Bowl? I'll give you a clue. He's a football player who's named after a juice.
Oh yeah.
And he's an accused murderer. Yeah. O.J. Simpson did the coin toss at that Super Bowl.
Yeah, it makes sense. He did play. He played running back for the Bills, but I didn't realize that they did
Michael Jackson did the halftime show.
So
I feel like we just described an SNL sketch. Sorry, I just had to throw that out there. Continue.
All right. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. The NFL was going a little bit safe after the Janet Jackson incident. And my second one on this list is the first Super Bowl halftime after Janet Jackson's incident with Paul McCartney at Super Bowl 39. And if you want to go like super satisfying, super, super safe, you pick a man in his, I think, late 50s, early 60s at the time, a legendary act where there was almost no controversy in the band, Paul McCartney, and put him on the Super Bowl halftime show for that year. If you don't know about the Super Bowl that year, well, this was the year that Tom Brady won his third Super Bowl. So just a few back.
I was about to say that the only thing satisfying about the Super Bowl was Paul McCartney's great performance. And I say that because I'm an Eagles fan.
You are an Eagles fan.
We got our revenge a few years. We got our revenge a few years later. That's all I'm going to say.
Just
move along.
24-21 Patriots over the Eagles. This was just one of those feel-good performances. Paul McCartney, of course, getting the entire crowd into it, and they, of course, passed out the cards in the stands, and it really felt like for the first time in a very long time, because you got to remember, before this, it was MTV running the show for the Super Bowl halftime, so it felt like a concert and a mashup session all at once, and the crowd really was just being played to instead of being a part of. So Paul McCartney, a couple of the songs that he performed here was Drive My Car, Get Back, Live and Let Die, Hey Jude, and one of the most memorable parts of the entire performance was Hey Jude. Like I said, they had the cards in the crowd and they were holding it up.
I was about to say that too, how cool that was. Yeah,
it was. It's awesome when they do stuff like that. And like I said, this was for the first time in a very, very long time that the crowd felt like it was a part of it instead of just being there for it. So that's number two. Number three took me a little bit by surprise, and it also took the Atlanta Falcons a little bit by surprise too, where they blew a 28-3 lead once again to the New England Patriots, and it was actually the only Super Bowl to be decided in overtime. And the performer for this year was Lady Gaga. Now, when I first heard that Lady Gaga was going to be performing at the Super Bowl this year, I was kind of like, really another year where they don't put like a rock act in there, like a legitimate rock act. Like, yeah, you had Paul McCartney and they had U2 and they had the Stones and the Who's, they're people who you've seen all the time. You'd expect they would have played a Super Bowl halftime, and there was nothing really thrilling, in my opinion, for a lot of those, except for Paul McCartney. I like Paul McCartney. But with Lady Gaga's performance, at the end of it, you could not help but to be at least a fan of her on some level, because first and foremost, she made the Super Bowl halftime show a little bit about America. And yes, before every game, we have the national anthem, and then sometimes they do God Bless America before the national anthem. But she did it during her halftime show, and she didn't have to do that. But being the show lady that she is, this was the first time that they used the synchronized drones behind her on top of Energy Stadium in Houston. And they synchronized to the American flag, which is really cool. Right after this really touching moment and tribute to America, she jumps off the roof of Energy Stadium. And then she starts being the performer that she is, doing aerial stunts during Poker Face. A couple of other songs in her set were Born This Way, Million Reason, Just Dance, Bad Romance. But it just felt like she enjoyed doing it. You can tell there are some people who perform that it might just be like a job or like a status thing. Like, oh, I haven't played the Super Bowl. Let me play the Super Bowl. Okay, great. Like Madonna, she feels like that to me, when she performed. Beyonce kind of felt like that. Like, oh, I haven't performed at the Super Bowl. Let me make some contacts. Let me perform at the Super Bowl. And then Bruno Mars. Granted, I don't agree with him doing it twice, so close to each other. He did it once with the Chili Peppers, and he did it with Beyonce and Coldplay, which is just a really weird random throw-in during that Super Bowl. But I really think that, you could tell the performers who want to be there and do it for the music and the fans and the right reasons. Hell, at the end of Lady Gaga's performance, they actually resynchronize the guys on the ground with the LED lights to the American flag again to do red, white, and blue. And then as she finished with Bad Romance, she got up to the top of the staircase, jumped off, caught a football, and landed in like an airbag, which I don't think anybody else has ever done, but it's still really cool. And it just shows you what type of performer that she is and how into it she actually was. So with a feel-good performance like that, I would say it's almost, and granted, she didn't do anything nearly as close to Lady Gaga, but when Whitney Houston sang at the Super Bowl a very, very long time ago, was the Giants and the Bills, and she just blew the roof off. I forget if it was the national anthem or God Bless America, but she did it before the show, but she just blew the roof off the place with that performance. And you could see that she was very into it. Lady Gaga, very into hers. So there you go. My three: Lady Gaga, Paul McCartney, and, of course, Michael Jackson.
I love that you made the joke about the Falcons getting distracted even by Lady Gaga's halftime show. But some of the players, I think, including Mohamed Sanu, even said blatant, like half joking that like, no, the halftime actually did throw us off. And not because, they were so mesmerized by Lady Gaga's performance, but they just were not prepared for the extended amount of time in between the halves. It's a testament to how unique of an event the Super Bowl is. It's not like any other sporting event in that there's much more glitz and entertainment involved than just simply a game, for better or worse. So it was funny to hear, because he made headlines going like, yeah, Lady Gaga's halftime show ended up screwing us over. And it wasn't him going like, oh, no, it wasn't Lady Gaga. It was just we were not prepared.
Yeah, I think it's double the amount of time. I think it's a half an hour instead of 15 minutes because it's actually it's another quarter.
Yeah,
it's another quarter of play.
They're doing first like the whole recap of the first half, commercials, and then the performance, getting it on and off the field. So yeah, I just always found that funny and fascinating, and also always wondered whether that was just them kind of making up excuses for the biggest mishap in sports history. Anyway, lovely list, Matt. My turn.
So what say you?
First, I'm going to go with, this is probably the most recent halftime show on either of our lists. I'm going to go with 2020 with J.Lo and Shakira.
I can only picture Shakira's face.
What, being shocked that I'm picking them, or? So
no, when she dove into the camera with like her mouth open and doing like the rock and roll thing, like, come on.
You know what? No, listen, it was a great show. Now keep in mind also that the NFL needed a performance like this because they had just gone through a lot of controversy with pretty much blacklisting Colin Kaepernick. I mean, I'm not going to go into politics here, but they were definitely at a point where they needed help bringing in a diverse audience and showing that they're not just a bunch of white jerks. They needed something new and refreshing. I mean, the year before, or a few years before, literally no artist wanted to even touch the Super Bowl. Maroon 5 had that task and they just kind of bombed and everyone thought it was stale. So here comes J.Lo and Shakira. They're not the first Latinas to have done the halftime show, but they brought a new sense of energy and flair to performances. And on top of that, I'm sorry, but they were great. They were entertaining. It kind of reminded you how awesome Shakira is, whether or not you liked her rock face. And frankly, it reminds you of what a awesome performer J.Lo was. And also remind you how many great songs she has. She just puts on a hell of a show. Even if you're not a huge fan of her, you go, oh yeah, I know that song. Oh wow, yeah, I know that song too. And wow, she's still, how old is she? Holy crap, she's phenomenal.
Zach, just remember, you just got to remember that she's just Jenny from the block.
I know, but she's more than that. Obviously, if you watched her halftime show. Kind of going back to when we were talking about Prince, how the halftime show can provide you a great opportunity to remind people who you are. And even when you were talking about Lady Gaga, it was a great opportunity to remind people the songs that you actually have, how you're an actual great performer and why you're on that stage. It's a great wake-up call. And I think this really did a great job at reminding everyone how phenomenal J.Lo and Shakira are. I'm not gonna lie, that was the open spot where I was like contemplating a few different picks, but I'm like, you know what? Let's go with J.Lo and Shakira. So my next pick, you kind of talked about this with Paul McCartney, and we talked about this even earlier on. After the infamous incident with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake in 2004, they went with definitely more established acts. The whole premise was, let's just get a really well-known act that a lot of the older audiences are going to know, and have them do a no surprise, no shocking moment, just mini concert. And a lot of the times it was not good, mainly because you can just tell that the older artists were just not into it. Paul McCartney was great, but then you had Rolling Stones and The Who, as much as I love both bands, you can just tell they just were there for the paycheck, no energy. But then in 2009, here came the boss, New Jersey's Lord and Savior, Bruce Springsteen, who put on a show that somehow captured energy that he has in a 4-hour set, put it into a 14-minute 4-song set. It just was such a phenomenal Bruce set. And you can tell that he knew how big of a deal it was that he was performing on that stage and in front of that many people. And he just gave it his all. He really just put on a hell of a set. Maybe it wouldn't necessarily win you over if you weren't a Bruce fan, but it would definitely make you appreciate and respect the showman that he is. And you can just tell he was having a blast. I mean, even when he knocked over a cameraman when he did a slide accidentally, he took it in stride. It looked like a fun party time. So that's my second pick, Bruce Springsteen, 2009. My final one, I know this is going to make your eyes roll, Matt. I'm going to paint you a picture. It's
watercolors, please.
It's 2001. NSYNC are the biggest band in the world. Sorry about you.
No lie.
And Aerosmith were at the point where they had a new album out, but they really were the
band that should have hung it up.
No, we're gonna not get into this debate. But at that point, they were the well-established classic rock band that MTV undeniably called legends. So when MTV was tasked to produce the halftime show at that point, and when they got the biggest rock band and the biggest pop band to share a stage, and then they threw in Britney Spears, Nelly, and Mary J. Blige. And another thing to keep in mind is that you mentioned about Michael Jackson, how in 93 he changed the landscape for what the halftime show was. As the years went on, though, it started kind of taking on this whole, there's a formula of basically, essentially genre splicing megafest, where they just had a bunch of random artists thrown in a pot together and they hoped for the best. And not all the time it worked great. This was an instance where it not only worked great, but it was probably the most relevant halftime show that the NFL ever put on in the longest time, maybe even arguably since Michael Jackson. It was probably the coolest performance they ever really did have up to that point, just in relevancy, in timeliness, and in just youthfulness too. I mean, yeah, Aerosmith was the oldest band, was older even back then, but like NSYNC was the biggest, most young, popular band at that point. And it was actually a fun performance. They complemented each other really well, and it took that formula of the genre splicing megafest and kind of perfected it. And it was just fun going back, forth between NSYNC, Aerosmith, and then all the surprise, quote unquote, surprise guests. In fact, I would even argue that was probably the first real time the halftime show had surprise guests, because I don't think it was really advertised that Britney Spears, Mary J. Blige and Nelly were making appearances there. I could be wrong about that. I do remember that it was such a big deal. MTV even filmed a sketch with Ben Stiller playing like a trainer where he, basically made Aerosmith and NSYNC like prep for the Super Bowl and do all these crazy funny obstacles. And then like it led into the actual performance. Another fun fact about this halftime show, maybe this is why it felt so lively and different at the time. It was actually the first Super Bowl halftime show where fans stood on the field around the stage. Before, they never had fans actually on the field, which is kind of weird to think of because now that's kind of a staple of the show too.
Well, that's when they had the parachute snowflakes. They had all the little performances around the stage with, the drill teams and whatnot. So yeah, that's why they never did that before.
It's true. But so it definitely felt more lively. So I'm going to go with Aerosmith, NSYNC, Britney, Nelly, and Mary J. Blige as my third pick. So to recap, J.Lo and Shakira in 2020, Bruce in 2009, and Aerosmith and NSYNC, The Pop Mayhem in 2001. And actually, real quick before we debate it out, since we talked about Mary J. Blige, I can't believe we didn't start this episode off talking about the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah, this one's going to be real interesting.
Oh my God. It's Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, and Mary J. Blige. Holy cow. That has the potential to be incredible. I mean, I'm the most excited about this that I've been in a long, long time for the Super Bowl halftime. I don't know about you.
Absolutely. And just because it is going to be so different, because this is obviously very hip hop forward. I don't think there has ever been, come to think about it, I don't think there's ever been a real hip hop forward Super Bowl halftime show. So there's
always been elements of hip hop, but there has like this.
No, nothing close to this. There is not a shred of rock music in this thing. There is not even a shred of pop in this thing. And that's very, very difficult to do. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to keep this clean. Like, I mean, Dr. Dre isn't exactly the cleanest lyricist. And
I think
it's Eminem.
Vegas bets are going to be who curses first. And it's a gamble.
Kendrick Lamar.
I think Eminem might be the first to slip it. Snoop's going to do it.
Yes. I don't know. This is going to be great, though. I can't wait to see it.
And fun show.
And I 100% agree with what they're doing because it's in LA. And you need to have LA artists in LA.
So now it's time to debate. Let me start off with a compromise with two of the spots.
Please say what I think you're going to say.
First spot goes to Lady Gaga.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I agree. I think it's a phenomenal. It really is. Going back to how I even said it before, J.Lo, how it was a great reinforcement of how great of a performer Lady Gaga is, but also how great her catalog is. I mean, I actually love Lady Gaga. And I was torn between making her or J.Lo and Shakira in my third spot. It was also the perfect medley of her hits. And even though for Gaga standards, it wasn't that shocking, she did get still a little bit of a shout out to the gay community in there when she included the interlude in Born This Way. For the audience that she was singing to, that's a big deal. You mentioned about how you can tell this meant so much to her and how she was getting so choked up. I'm even getting choked up thinking about how the moment she just turns to the camera and goes, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." Like, it was just so beautiful and so genuine. It was such a moment where you can just see that was like, oh my God, this is it. All the hard work, all the sacrifices. This is the most amazing payoff. Like, it was just, I'm getting kind of teared up even just thinking about that. And then closing with Bad Romance. Oh my God. Hands down, that's going to be in the final three. So I'm giving you that one. I think you need to give me, though, Aerosmith and NSYNC.
Yeah, it's fine. I can agree with it. And it really is another one of those pivotal moments where you can see the changing of the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that leaves the third spot. I feel dirty giving anything to Michael Jackson right now. I'm sorry. I think it should come down to either between Paul or Bruce.
I don't know, man. Michael Jackson was specifically brought in because the NFL and the halftime show ratings were tanking, and he put on one hell of a performance in an environment where it had never been done to that level before. And he set the stage so you would you wouldn't have Bruce, or you wouldn't have your Aerosmith and NSYNC, and you wouldn't have Paul McCartney up there like that. Michael Jackson made it possible. Sorry. As much as you might argue, all of the things that he did throughout his life, forgetting that for a moment, because yes, I agree with you. Some of the things he did weren't the greatest, but from a strict performance standpoint and the performer that Michael Jackson was and what this meant to the Super Bowl, you can't tell me anybody else but Michael Jackson deserves this last spot. You don't even have to say that you gave it to me. I'll just throw it in there and we can end the list right now. So you don't have to say another word.
No, but
blink on your camera if you agree.
I do and I don't. And I'm struggling because I'm also trying to tell myself it's not just because of the controversy around him, but I'd also be partly lying about that too. I will still make the argument even for Paul McCartney, where it is an example of how even the safest of choices and performances could still be impactful. It was a half an hour of Beatles and a few Paul McCartney songs. What better performance than that? Before we maybe even get into whether or not I agree on Michael Jackson, there is one thing I think you and I can agree on.
Which is?
That single-handedly the worst halftime performance at the Super Bowl was the Black Eyed Peas.
Well, are we talking about performances that you could see or ones that you couldn't see?
Well, because technically, there were some of the letters that were missing on the stage that you couldn't see, so I guess that kind of covers both, huh?
Well, there is that, but there was.
You could go ahead. Sorry.
There was a Super Bowl halftime show. I forget which one it is, but it was right when. Right, you didn't see it at all. The Gulf War actually, I think it started like slightly before the Super Bowl, and they interrupted the Super Bowl with updates from the war, and they cut out all the performances. But even that year, it was supposed to be another one of those feel-good Super Bowl halftime shows with like the kids performing. So it was another one of those like just hokey things to try to,
I mean, I think we can agree that anything before 1990 was just a crapshoot. I mean, there's even questionable stuff in the 90s. I mean, hell, they had freaking Dan Aykroyd, Jim Belushi, and John Goodman perform as quote unquote the Blues Brothers with ZZ Top and James Brown. That's pretty cringeworthy. But I would argue that the Black Eyed Peas is still considerably one of the worst. Before that, the Black Eyed Peas were considered possibly one of the most untouchable groups. They were producing pop hit after pop hit. They were slowly, slightly decreasing. They were hoping that the Super Bowl would help them get back on the right track. And it was just a cluster fire. They didn't sound good. They were all over the place. The stage was malfunctioning. And then as if it wasn't bad enough, they had Slash come out in a bedazzled top hat.
So I'm
then Fergie then screeched out Sweet Child of Mine. Wasn't even a good cover. It was just, I remember just thinking, what the hell is this? And then pretty much after that, Black Eyed Peas became a laughing stock. And I really still think that they never regained the credibility that they had before that.
So I'm going to stop you right there, because this sounds like if you have to pick three of the worst Super Bowl halftime acts.
We could go down that road, but I think we've touched upon so many bad. I think we'd have to do if you had to pick 10, because there are so many bad ones.
Let us know if you want us to go down that road. Comment section below.
Absolutely. Or maybe make some suggestions. Maybe there's some that we just blocked out from our minds because they're that terrible.
All right, so this final spot. Let's stop stalling here.
I know. I stalled enough, didn't I?
You were on the right track, baby.
Don't bring Lady Gaga into this. Don't tarnish her name in this too. All right, I'll give in.
All
Michael
right, so
Jackson.
You're blinking on camera. We're good here. All right.
Well, no, I'm reluctantly giving in, because you're right. It did really change the landscape, and you could definitely. It became a bigger part of the whole presentation at that point, of the Super Bowl presentation. I'll give you that. Fine. So with that, the final three is Lady Gaga's 2017 halftime performance, Aerosmith, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Nelly, and Mary J. Blige's performance at the 2001 Super Bowl.
Ain't no lie.
And then I'll let you name the third one.
The third one would be Michael Jackson and his Super Bowl 27 landscape-changing halftime show,
which followed the infamous coin toss from O.J. Simpson. Don't forget.
Indeed.
Let's not forget that. Very important detail. So do you agree with us? Are there performances that we're forgetting that we should have mentioned? Cough, maybe Beyonce, cough. Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more podcasts like this, as well as check out some cool videos from us. And once again, a big thank you to Lucky 13 Beard Co. We mentioned earlier, go to lucky13beardco.com. Use the code EFP10 on your purchase order of any of Ed's amazing beard oils and beard care products, and maybe even pick up a bottle of our own beard oil inspired by Lemmy himself. Again, lucky13beardco.com. Use the code EFP10. And also a major special shout out to rootlesscoffee.com. Really great guys out of Flint, Michigan, who really produce some interesting tasting coffees that really break free from boring. And if you go to rootlesscoffee.com and use the code EPICROAST, all caps, you'll get 15% off of your order on some really tasty blends. Can't recommend that enough either. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
See ya.